And that jarring cacophony tells you you're back with the Power of Three podcast, the Scottish podcast that likes to scream if you want to go faster. Yeah, there's a clue for what's coming at the end of the episode, Jerry Halliwell fans. And yes, we are here to talk about that 2003 40th anniversary special animated story, Scream of the Shalka. I'm Kenny Smith, and sitting with me is my old work colleague, my pal, and he's grinning. He's got a lovely big smile in his chops because it's still the summer.
It is still the summer. Hi, Kenny. Hi, everyone. Stevie here. And did you say 40 years?
It was the 40th anniversary,
40th anniversary. Gosh, I'm not feeling old at all. Hello. You know, it's great. You know, it is the summer. I am smiling, and I'm also smiling because this is a great podcast for a great story.
Oh, that's not at all presuming that we're going to have interesting things to say. But
no, I mean, that's it. We might as well just wrap up. Cue Jerry Halliwell, let's go.
No, we will not. We will maybe discuss it. We don't want to leave people hanging on and leaving disappointed when they've tuned in expecting to have a bit of conversation about it. But yeah, we'll do that. But first, before we discuss it, let's hear a trailer for the story.
No! I won't do it! Whatever it is, I don't want to be here!
You seem a nice young man. You should stay off the grass.
Why?
It's down there.
No wonder you're all afraid.
Sound makes you afraid.
I am Prime, War Chief of the Shalka Confederacy.
Homo sapiens has minutes to live.
Go on. Save the world.
Doctor! Doctor!
You're human. Decent of you to say.
What are you?
Mildly annoyed.
Die, Doctor! Die!
The doctor! They killed the doctor!
So yes, Stevie, it's 2003. It's actually specifically July 2003, and it's first announced that Scream of the Shalka is on the way. It's going to star Richard E. Grant, animated by the legendary Cosgrove Hall, and it's going to be shown on the BBC website. And then you're like, yay, this is all new. Richard E. Grant, a big name and such likes. But then, of course, it comes to September 2003, and we get the awful news that Doctor Who's coming back on telly as a show.
I know, it was terrible, wasn't it?
Awful sad.
Awful.
September the 26th. So for about, 2 and a bit months, Richard E. Grant was the current Doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Before we'd seen him.
Yep.
But so what do you remember about the announcement? Because I remember, from my point of view, it's like, oh, so they've killed off the 8th Doctor and they've not really done that much with him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd enjoyed the Paul McGann outing. I couldn't see where it was going to go in a series, and I felt by the time I was watching the end credits of that, and they weren't saying, "Man, Doctor Who will return next year." I'm thinking, no one's shouting about this, and there'd been so much kind of, maybe we'll do this, and maybe we'll do a movie, and a movie is coming, and we're shooting in production. None of this, of course, was actually happening. So when this announcement came out, I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Is it going to happen? Are we going to get New Who? I knew there was animations in the offing. But of course, at that time, and I think with limited internet, you didn't have that same sort of go off and research TARDIS Wiki. other websites are also available, to find out, what was going on. So for me, it was a very much a, well, okay, we'll read the magazine, DWM or whatever, and then we'll see. But I just wasn't expecting a full-blown series.
No, neither was I. 13 episodes, you're thinking you might get like half a dozen episodes, but to get 13 and live action series, it was a bit of a shock. Now, you mentioned TARDIS Wiki there. Here's what they have to say about Scream of the Shalka.
Go for it, Kay.
Scream of the Shalka was a flash animated Doctor Who serial with Richard E. Grant as the voice of the Ninth Doctor. Its animation was produced by Cosgrove Hall. The series was webcast by the BBC's official Doctor Who website in November and December 2003, tying in with the show's 40th anniversary. And I guess the thing was that there was this sort of element of, it's some new Doctor Who, because by this point, of course, we'd had some animated stuff on the BBC website. We'd had Death Comes to Time.
Yep.
With Sylvester, we'd had a Sixth Doctor story with Real Time. We'd had Eighth Doctor story with the animated audio adaptation of Shada.
Yep.
So here we go, something new. And I definitely felt, that seems a bit strange that you're killing off the Eighth Doctor when, of course, he's ongoing at Big Finish at this point, and there's the range of Eighth Doctor books, but you still would have thought, But there's a really good documentary on the DVD edition, which tells us the TARDIS lands at a small English village in 2003, where the population are living in fear from a malevolent alien force. With the help of Unit and his new friend Alison, the Doctor discovers that a race called the Shalka are residing underground, preparing to strip away Earth's ozone layer and embark on a full-scale invasion of the planet. Now, I was excited by the fact that Paul Cornell was writing it, because one of the best Doctor Who writers around, particularly in the 90s, what he did with New Adventures, really set the tone for what would become the future TV series, although we didn't know that at the time. And absolutely safe pair of hands to go with. And the thing that really struck me when watching this back was how similar it is thematically to a lot of New Who. You've got a damaged Doctor who's trying to get over some horrendous personal catastrophe. You've got a young woman who's aspiring to do more in life than just working her basic job. A place of importance to her gets completely blown up because of the Doctor. She's got a boyfriend who's a little bit on the wet side or a bit useless. And you've got this hidden threat that slowly but surely emerges in plain sight.
Yep. And you've got something's happened to the Doctor, but that's never absolutely revealed. So you can read that as Time War or whatever, because I think I read somewhere else it was the destruction of Gallifrey, but not Time War. But all those threads are kind of there to be pulled. And I actually find it, not insulting, that's a bad thing. As you read the TARDIS Wiki, starring the voice of, and I thought, well, actually, that demeans anyone who does voice stuff, really, because it's still an acting thing. I mean, he wasn't just reading the lines, he was acting through it. And I think that's an important distinction between reading an audiobook flat and then performing an audiobook and then being part of a multi-voice drama. I think it's got to be recognised that all of those people in there were acting their little hearts out.
Absolutely. And what a great cast it is. I mean, we'll come back to Richard D in a wee minute, but Sophie Okonodo, fantastic, years before Liz 10, of course.
I am the bloody queen. See, I had to go back and read and check the cast, and then I'm thinking, of course that's who it is, because I was getting a voice in my head that I recognised. And I've seen her in a few other things, and I rate her as an actor, actually, because she's different than a whole load of things she does. But the one thing she can't hide, and she shouldn't, is her voice, because it's such a great voice.
Yeah. I'm sure she was Oscar nominated for something.
Right.
Off the top of my head, I should have looked that up, but I think she's absolutely superb. She makes Alison really likeable in the way that we like Rose.
Yeah.
And that she's got get up and go. She's got a good attitude to her, and she's not willing to sit back and be a wallflower. She's very much hands-on.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because the director or whoever or her, unlike a traditional play where you have to fill, this is partly because of the animation. Unlike a traditional audio play where you have to fill everything so people don't think, oh, has my radio stopped? They could take pauses. They could take breaths. And that adds to the drama. It wasn't all... You know, you did have time to take that, and I think that added to the characterization of that.
Mm-hmm.
Helped with the animation, because you've got something to watch. You realise it. The thing hasn't stopped.
I thought that Craig Kelly was great as Joe. He's very likable. Of course, he does have his own bit of Doctor Who history, having been in Queer as Folk and been the Doctor Who fan in that. And but never actually made it into the main show, which is quite weird. And but it's great. I mean,
there's still time.
Absolutely. I keep hearing him doing voiceovers for adverts these days, and I hear him at least once a day when I'm listening to Talk Sport, and before I throw the radio out the window and just say no. I think he's great. And the rest cast, Diana Quick is brilliant as Prime, just that as the main villain of the piece. She's got an awful lot of presence in that voice.
Yeah. I think, I mean, the cast is brilliant. This is, how do I explain it? I was taken back to the first time I watched it, but we can go over that. You know, my rewatching, I was instantly into it. The writing grabs you. The animation does its job, because, you know, I love Cosgrove Hall, and they were doing the Flash animation with all the limitations at that time. They did brilliant
Stevie,
stuff.
just because you're technically minded, do you want to maybe explain what Flash animation is for those who don't know?
Yeah. All right. Okay. Potted history of Flash. Flash was basically something that would live in your browser, and that would allow animations, whether it was text coming on, and instead of kind of bitmaps and graphics chunking their way over your very limited connection, it would be smooth. Things could zoom in. You could create shapes, 3Ds. So that's what the animation of Flash allowed you to do. You could create complete movies if you were really good with the software. It had its limitations. It was used for all kinds of things. You know, it was sitting there along with a thing called Java, which sits in printers and everything else. Unfortunately, it arrived in the time where there were bugs aplenty and people started to exploit, and that was the death of Flash, really. That had to be removed from browsers. I can't remember when, but, you know, in the last 15 years or so. But it was a great way for a lot of people to get in to animation really, really cheaply, because Flash was just available, and there was lots of freeware or really cheap software that would allow you to get into it. And it was also very low bandwidth. So once your Flash animation had loaded, it would then run in your browser, and you didn't need 20 megabits per second to watch something smooth. So, I mean, that's the kind of the potted history of Flash. It opened up an awful lot of avenues to animators. It wasn't just big animators with big machines and power crazy internet connections.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's what Cosgrove Hall, obviously they decided. I mean, I don't know what the thinking process was on the commissioning, but obviously BBC would have wanted an animation, and they would have much preferred not just to go from one frame where the Doctor's this to draw another frame when the Doctor's that. I think, Shada, you talked about, you know, they had limited use of Flash and QuickTime and other things. You know, it wasn't quite there. This was kind of the pinnacle of Flash animations.
Yeah. I remember watching it on my old computer. I think this would have been dial-up days. It was 2003, before we got proper broadband. And you know, waiting for it to drop, or as we would say nowadays, waiting for it to go live. And there was that excitement of having that weekly build-up again. I really enjoyed that. It was that it brought back the film. Perhaps with Big Finish releases, I'm not disciplined enough to listen to one episode and then make it last a week. If I'm enjoying something, I'm just going to go ahead and listen. And it was really entertaining. So it was 13th November, the first episode was live. And I'm trying to think, what have I been doing 13th November 2003? I've been working at the Wishaw Press, just about to finish up there and then move to the Rutherglen Reformer, because I went to the Panopticon convention that year down in London, crashed over with my pal Ian McLaughlin. Dave was there, but we've no memories of each other being there, and I'm sure we'd have said hello because we're not rude. And but Scream of the Shalka wasn't the big topic of conversation, bizarrely. It was mainly the fact that Paul McGann and India Fisher were there doing their first convention.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think 2003, I'm trying to think technology-wise. I mean, I was obviously working for good old Open Times newspaper, where I still work under a different guise. But the technology then, in work at lunchtimes, it would probably be an ISDN connection. So I would probably get the opportunity to watch the weekly episodes on that. I think at home I was still on dial-up. I don't think broadband hit my little rural complex till sort of 2004, I think.
Yeah.
So it was very much, where am I going to watch it? How am I going to see it? And of course, the machines weren't really up to it either. I mean, I've talked about Flash, running on a whole load of stuff, but it still jerked its way along. But I think what it really showed was the potential. And again, the sound and the music and everything else that went with it. And it's all we had for New Who. It was exciting.
New Who to watch. Obviously, we had Big Finish building up to the greatest.
And and not to be purist about it, I obviously love Big Finish stuff. I regard Big Finish stuff as canon as it can be really now. Yeah. I know it gets overridden because the canon is the TV series. If it doesn't happen in the TV series, or if they want to override what Big Finish have done, they will just do that, and that's fine. But
that's the Time War for you, Steve.
That's the Time War, multiverses, whatever you want to look at. So, but yeah, this was the only thing we could watch that we thought was nearly canon now, and that made it exciting. And I know we'll maybe touch this later, but it's interesting that, and I hadn't realised, because I need to rewatch Ncuti's Gatwa's Rogue episode, but Richard E. Grant appears in there as the Shalka Doctor, I believe.
Yes.
And so that is canon. So I thought that's quite a nice thing to say. So let's treat Shalka as canon. There's nothing in there that breaks anything anyway.
Yeah.
And with the number of Doctors we've got, it doesn't matter what their number is, they can fit in almost anywhere.
Yes, very much so. Now, Stevie, I can reveal that I actually knew that Scream of the Shalka was on the way before it had actually been announced.
Was this the beginning of your little black book, Kenny?
It probably was actually around the time that these things were happening. Yes, actually it was. It was actually, because I'm very friendly with Big Finish composer Russell Stone, who's a good pal of mine. And Russell did scores for things like Spare Parts, The Chimes of Midnight, loads of outstanding Big Finish stories. And he let me know one day that the BBC had been in contact to say, would you fancy doing the music for a new webcast? But it's not involving Big Finish, it's very much BBC directly. And because they'd liked his work in Shada, he got the call and was commissioned to do this. And the music you can hear in the background is the score from there. It is actually included on the DVD release, but it's still a lovely thing to have. It's very organic sounding. I love Russell's music. But yeah, that was my little sort of excitement.
Well, that's really exciting. And they didn't have to do it. This is the other thing. They could have cut corners and said, we're not going to have music, or we'll just reuse. It's good that they commissioned.
Yep.
Something, and they put the effort into it. This would have still been quite expensive for its time.
Oh, completely. No doubt about that.
You can think and think, it must have been really cheap. Cheaper than doing 6 filmed episodes, for sure. But it's still high production values. And as you've said, I mean, it's engaging. It's a great story. It really does stand up to modern scrutiny. I mean, you could put someone down in front of that and a fan, and I'm sure they're going to enjoy it.
Yep. And the animation's great. It looks so good. Obviously it's been done for Flash purposes, so there's not the full animation.
No.
But what you actually get, you can see it's sophisticated enough to keep you watching, and it's lovely and stylized. Particularly, I think the Shalka look amazing. They're a bit like Fendal, but a bit more angry. Fendal, but more angry.
Fendal and what's the Trepid? Is it Trepitil?
Pteroleptils, yes.
Pteroleptils. So it's a wee bit of a combo. And I think the stylization of it, in keeping with how Flash works, is really good. I'm not saying I don't like the modern animations. So the modern animations I've seen are very slick, very cool.
Yep.
But for this story, I don't think I'd have wanted it that slick and cool. I think it really fits into the style of what they were writing. I think that I love Cosgrove Hall. I mean, they are Danger Mouse to me.
Yes.
And it was great to see that they got the gig. And the passion, I don't think there's a Cosgrove Hall thing I've watched where I don't feel the passion of the animators and the writers and the performers. That's a trademark, I think, for them. Are they still on the go these days?
No, sadly, they went out of business, which is really sad because I think they did the animated version of the Invasion episodes 1 and 4, which were on the DVD. Yep. They were originally planned to go on the BBC website, but then I think they discovered just how expensive it was to produce, so it ended up going to the team for the DVDs. But yeah, they sadly folded, which is a real shame because it's such a big part of so many people's childhoods in the UK. Count Duckula, Charlton and the Wheelies, Jamie and the Magic Torch, all these amazing shows, and all with great theme tunes as well.
Yes. What I would say, and it's a lesson for us all, going to divulge into a bit more tech here, is archive creep. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No.
Right. Archive creep is, so Flash is an example. You've created this wonderful product and it's in Flash, but then Flash is discontinued and in fact removed. And so a modern machine maybe can't run it, and then the emulators can't run it. And all of a sudden you may have these Flash things downloaded, but you can no longer play them. You've got it on DVD, and that's fine. But the archive creep means that one day there are no DVD players to play it on. And you've got to move to the next level. And does someone transcribe it to something else? Does it become a download? Will it be on iPlayer? But then one day the iPlayer app doesn't exist. So this exists not just for what we're talking about here. It exists for your Photoshop formats or your WordPerfect, if anyone remembers that.
Yes.
All these things. So this archive creep, we've got to be very aware of it. And all Who things, whether it's audio, Big Finish, or whatever, is all the things we love and we've bought. Can we still play them, or can we convert them moving onwards? So it's something everyone needs to be aware of, because I'm sure there will be precious things that people have, maybe sitting on a laptop somewhere that still work, that are not available elsewhere. Keep on track with that. Make sure that you can transfer it to something so you can keep enjoying what you've got, so that somebody on a streaming platform doesn't decide, we don't like that sequence with a rat. We're going to remove it. You can guess which film that was.
Yes.
Do you know which film that was?
At least I think I do.
The Abyss, which apparently scenes have been removed. So again, archive creep. When someone else has control of the archive, you suddenly discover you can't watch an episode, or an episode as you remember. Anyway, I'm going to stop.
Techno. Scrooge Stevie's Techno Corner. You also mentioned there the music. So it's like, I love the theme mix for this. I think it is so good. I can actually listen to it quite happily, and it goes so well with those titles, taking the Pertwee titles, taking stills, and then just swirling them round or bringing them up.
I'm hoping that your Jarring Cacophony features that.
Of course it does. It concluded in that. You obviously weren't listening when I played it earlier. Or you'd almost think it had been added later in the dub edit, but
I wasn't listening. You see, that's. I liked Richard E. Grant's Doctor. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but Richard E. Grant is Richard E. Grant, and Patrick Stewart is Patrick Stewart, and others are others. They always give a good performance. Sometimes they don't flex that much, but I know others don't like him. But I thought he did a really, really good job, and I'm sorry that there hasn't been more of that.
I would agree. I think that I'll actually tell you, I've got a quote here from Russell T. Davis talking about Richard E. He says, I thought he was terrible. I thought he took the money and ran, to be honest. It was a lazy performance. He was never on our list to play the Doctor. So there you go, there's my dreadful Welsh Russell T. Davis. I apologise to all my Welsh friends.
As any Welsh friends of mine that are listening, I apologise for Kenny too.
Yeah.
I saw that quote. Like many things online, I'm not sure what's real anymore. But then, he was included in Rogue, so if he disliked him that much, would he have? And of course, you've got to remember him in Curse of the Fatal Death, which I thought was a nice touch.
He's great with his lick the mirror, gorgeous.
And, suitably weird, but he was a good Doctor, even if he was there for a short time. It's a bit difficult with him playing Simeon later on because, people might get confused. But I think as a standalone Doctor in this episode and this story and Curse of the Fatal Death, which I do almost count as canon because I think it could fit in quite nicely.
Yeah, you've got that range where you've got the 8th Doctor on TV, then he splits into comics, he splits into books, he splits into audio. So that way you can have Richard E. Grant, you can have Rowan Atkinson, and you can have Christopher Eccleston.
Yep.
As that, obviously not including the War Doctor at this point, but yeah, there was that potential. Yeah. No, I agree with. I think that it's quite. I disagree with the phrasing that lazy. I don't think it is because you listen to him at the start, and this is a Doctor who's recovering from a trauma, which I thought was a lost companion, and I thought I thought it gave a very sort of. He doesn't want to get involved. He's on a mission. Apparently for the Time Lords or something like that, and he really doesn't want to get involved and be friendly with people again. He wants to be left alone and then go back to the TARDIS with his travelling companion, who we'll come to shortly. And I think he gives a sort of, he's a broken man at the start, like Eccleston, and as he goes along he meets Alice and he's getting his joie de vivre back. And there's the stuff when he's riding the Shalka and he comes out with a very, what was it, let's go big boy or something like that, a ridiculous line. It's very funny, and apparently that was improvised by him. I just think that's not a guy who's given a lazy performance and phoning it in.
And I said at the beginning, he was actually, that my objection to voiced by, he was performing it. And I think they must have known when they were recording it that the chances of doing a sequel were maybe there, but unlikely. So they weren't going to have any time to say, over the next 6 episodes, let's explore. He had to come in straight there, guns a-blazing almost. Yes, leave the breadcrumbs about, and don't explain everything as you go, just in case. But, I think it's a bit unfair to say, well, he phoned it in or whatever, because they had to get going. They had to get moving. Yeah. Otherwise, this would have been inaccessible.
Yeah. What did you think of his look? That's some sort of, I think somebody described it as like a vampiric Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. I mean, I think it fitted in really well with the Doctor.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything, you couldn't say, not to have a go at Colin's costume, but Colin's costume is the one that I would say stands out the most if you want to if you want to ridicule the look in Doctor Who. It's a bit like, well, they fixed it, but paint Cybermen black if you want them to hide in the dark. Don't make them silver. Yeah. Colin was all over the place with colour. I thought this was a really good traditional-ish, but let's give him a bit of an edge. And of course, with the animation, you've got to cut those eyebrows. You've got to cut that hair.
Yeah.
Otherwise they've just become another Danger Mouse character. With red hair or whatever. So, I mean, they've obviously spent a lot of time thinking about how he's going to look, and I would say about the other character, the companion we're going to discuss. They thought a lot about that as well. They took from the past. But again, in Flash, you don't have the graduated tones. You've got, you're building in in polygons than blocks. So you've got to allow for something. But I know I as you said, the overall style is great for everything, and his look is good. And obviously for the YouTube viewers who can see my screen, as you commented, I've got a bit of artwork for one of the proposed sequels, and that's a watercolor Photoshop based thing, and you can see that they've taken that Flash look and transferred it into a photorealistic image. But it's a good image.
Yeah, just looking at it, it's very smart. I mean, I just like the whole look. I think you've got that almost the Tom Talons of Weng Chiang kind of cloak, overcoat kind of look to it, with a high collar.
Yeah.
And just the hair sort of greying around the temples with a flash through it, almost like the Bride of Frankenstein. It gives him that sort of horror look. And of course, Alison's whole look preempts what we got with Bill by 14 years.
Yeah.
That vest, top and jeans kind of look.
Yes. But I really, again, because of the limitations in Flash, really well-defined facial features, which were consistent. And I would say that's the other thing that benefits Cosgrove Hall. Everything was consistent across the whole story. There wasn't somebody saying, "Oh, we'll try and do a little bit of this, or we'll tweak this." This was nice and consistent. So it's the kind of thing that you could print out frame by frame. Well, not frame by frame. That'd be expensive. But you could print selective scenes and put them on a nice A4 poster and meld them together. It would be a nice bit of artwork.
Yeah. Now, at this point, Stevie, I'd like to reveal something in the podcast that I've never mentioned before.
Okie dokie. I am. Excuse me. I'm just sitting down and steadying myself.
Yes, indeed. Get ready, because
YouTube viewers, you should probably put on some protective glasses. Yep.
And indeed, also put on some incontinence pants, because you're going to piss yourself with how exciting this is, because I have met Richard E. Grant. Indeed, I have.
Wow.
This was about 4 or 5 years before The Scream of the Shalka, because Richard was appearing in a film called The Match, in which he played a character called George Gus, who's a not very nice owner of a bistro. And it's set in a Scottish village, and there's a falling out between a pub and a bistro, and the winner gets to demolish the other's pub or whatever it is, something like that. And my friend Danny was actually the football coordinator in this. Danny Craney used to play for Celtic, and Danny was a pal of Mick Davis, the director. And because Danny was working in East Kilbride at the time, he said, "Do you fancy coming down?" And I was basically sworn to secrecy. Said, "I've got something for you, but I can't tell you what it is, but you'll be interested in it." And he's like, "Do you want to do it?" I said, "It's football related, but there's like some famous people as well." And I thought, yeah, I'm totally up for that. So I got my instructions, and I think it was a Wednesday morning. Had to drive all the way down past Loch Lomond, and then when I got to a certain field, there was a temporary sign up going up a hill.
Mm-hmm.
So went up this hill.
Did it say unit on it?
It didn't say unit on it.
Mm.
Because there was no sign of Bumbera or Lethbridge Stewart.
No.
And no, there was no...
They say unit.
They often do that, but no, this one was... They'd actually put up a fake place name. I'm sure it was something like that. So followed this road, and we're told to follow it for 3.5 miles and then take a left turn, and then you'll see what you need to see. So myself and my photographer went there and did this, and lo and behold, there was this football pitch set up, lots of cameras around, well, a few camera lights and things like that, and got there and met by Danny, and it was this film that they were shooting.
Wow.
And absolute secrecy, because the cast has got James Cosmo, who was in Space 1999 many moons ago. No, it wasn't. It was UFO. There was Isla Blair, of course, was in The King's Demons. Mrs. Julian Glover. There was Max Beasley, Ian Holm, Neil Morrissey, David Heyman. Also in the cast was the American actor Tom Sizemore, but nobody really got to see him because he was on his methadone at that point. He's now dead, so I think I can say that. And it was mentioned there that he has a heroin problem. But also in the cast, as well as Richard E. Grant, was somebody who I quite liked in the 80s as well. You may have heard of this young lady. She's probably best known for being in newspapers and her singing career. It was a Miss Samantha Fox. Yeah, ding dong. If you're going to Google Samantha Fox, people, don't do it on your work computer. So that's my advice. If you're an American, you don't know who Sam Fox is. So yeah. So yeah, Scotch in. But then went out, Danny showed me around and got chatting to him, got chatting to some of the actors about Danny's football coaching. And then just before they started to go out, he says, I want you to come with me and I want to come and meet a couple of people. So went out into the middle of the pitch and there was Richard E. and Sam Fox. And I got to shake hands with Richard, and he was wearing a pair of gloves, like fingerless gloves, like you have with the first Doctor and the Five Doctors, and they were quite mucky looking as well. And that's what I remember. And he had a very nice, warm, friendly handshake and said, "Hello, how are you?" And Danny told him who I was, so we had a very quick chat. But I didn't get an official interview with him, but we just had a sort of a friendly chat. Wow. And Sam Fox was just very, very short and very lovely.
Oh, Kenny.
So there you go. So this was around 98 or 99, but the thing that really got me was that the day before, one of the film's executive producers had been on, and he had a small part in the film. Mm-hmm. He's an Irish actor. You may have heard of him, Pierce Brosnan. I missed him by a day.
Oh,
because I couldn't go on the Tuesday because that was the Scotland News deadline day.
Right.
And I couldn't, and Danny couldn't. He said, you really should come today. I was like, I can't. So went the next day and oh well.
That was fantastic.
So yeah. There you go. There's another one of my moments with the clanger.
And the beginning, I feel, of your black book, as we said.
Yes, it did sort of kick off. So there we go. But yeah, kick off. Ironic pun for a football story. So yeah, so that's how I met the Shalka Doctor. And yeah, I do. I mean, I still think it's one that I don't watch that often, I have to admit. But when I thought this would actually be quite good fun to do and revisit it, particularly after obviously seeing him in Rogue last year, and thought, we need to get around to doing this at some point. And as you know, we have talked about it a lot, but finally get around to doing it. And I really enjoyed coming back to it.
No, I thoroughly did as well. And it had been, I can't remember the last time I watched it. I still remembered lots of it because it started off, I didn't remember the title sequence right enough, but once it started off and then Alison was coming in, I thought, no, I remember this. And then it was actually Saturday morning, and I thought, I'll watch one episode. And then I just sat there until it had all done. And I suppose that just shows you, that it was actually genuinely entertaining.
Yeah, I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. Yep. Not that, because I don't have bad memories of it, but I just enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to. I think it's just that sort of hindsight put some distance, because the DVD came out in 2013, I think it was.
I think so. That was 10 years later, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I hadn't watched it since then. So it was quite nice to go back and discover something new. Yeah, 16th of September 2013 it came out. And there you go, I've done my research. I've got it all in my notes here. And yeah, it was really, really fun to watch. And the thing that really was the Shalka noise. That scream is so good.
Yep.
That's sort of what it's used for burrowing, and yeah, it sticks in the head.
Someone thought long and hard about this stuff. A lot of effort into it. And, the scream was annoying because it went right through your head.
Exactly.
It was, there was no getting away from that. Okay, we need to talk about the companion, though.
Yes.
Because I'd forgotten what this was all about. I'd also forgotten who was playing this particular companion.
Yep.
So that was a bit of a shock when I looked and thought, okay. And
yes,
of course, it leads, for me, it was a bit of a leading into Peter Capaldi's Vault.
Yes.
Epic stories.
Yep, there's an element of that. But also the casting is just incredible. We go 3 years before he was cast as the Master in Utopia. Sir Terry Jacobi shows up here and he's so good. He's just so calm, malevolent, and his voice sounds slightly different to his War Master voice as well.
It does, and it's an understated performance. And of course, I'd forgotten that it's the Master Android. So I'm thinking, I kind of remember, but how does this all fit in? And then I was thinking of Missy and the Vault, and then the face falls open, and I think, but again, an unexpected thing, I think. And, Paul Cornell is just such a good writer. and this just all. You could have said, "Oh, I could have seen that coming." Actually, no. You just enjoy the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
He's very clever with his stuff.
Yeah, and there's that great lines of "I am the master, and you are most welcome to a cup of tea," or whatever. It's something like that, and
yes,
and you think, yeah, it's great. It's just sort of completely plays against him. The fact that he's got a friendly relationship with the Doctor, and you think he's going to betray him, but actually, no, he doesn't. It's sort of give him sort of like with the master with the evil removed. He's maybe slightly dubious as a character, but he's not evil, planning, scheming, and they do make such a good double act.
Yes, and I think I've just said how much I've enjoyed it. In a more traditional story, you'd have probably had to have the Master evil at the end. But in actual fact, it was nice that he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that would have happened in a future episode or a future story. Who knows? Maybe that was the whole timeline thing. But I just thought it was nice for once just to have him there as that character, and that's how it ended.
Yes, and they go off and they're friends, maybe friends with a bit of history. They're not best pals, but they're friendly enough and get on. Also, how lovely was the TARDIS interior? Sort of somewhere between the TV movie and the actual eventual version that we got when the show came back.
I mean, again, less is more.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't see, you saw the console, you saw this, you saw that, but you didn't see the whole thing. And sometimes that's quite nice. It's you don't need to see everything. It's just, and again, it's more cartoony than real, and you don't have to fly through it and show everything. We know the basis of a TARDIS. We know there's a console. We know there's this. But oh look, as you say, there's a bit from that movie, and there's a bit from that TARDIS, and ooh, that could be a future thing. And as it was predicting the future.
Yeah, I just love how the dials on it. The fact that the angle's slightly different, whereas we've been used to the traditional console, which hadn't changed much, whereas this one's more flat, and then it is more raised around the time rotor. And it was so lovely. It was just really nice done. And I'm sure there'll be somebody out there who's done a CGI render of it, because it would be great.
Probably. I mean, I think it also shows a wee bit of maybe a turning point for Who, because the original TARDIS console, obviously it had changed as time went on, but not radically. And I would say the only real radical change was in the Five Doctors.
Mm.
And I don't know if you remember, there was a huge bit of outcry about, what's happened from a certain fan base, what's happened to the old TARDIS? You can only imagine what they thought when Eccleston stepped into his. But I think a lot of people have grown up and have accepted that you can have a different TARDIS interior. Mm-hmm. But you keep the basics, it's still the TARDIS. It's a bit like Federation starships from Star Trek. You've got the saucer, you've got the nacelles, and you've got engineering, and then you repurpose it. But nobody gets upset now that it looks slightly different.
Yeah, whether they've got 4 nacelles, 3, or whatever else.
Or the absolute horror of 1. Because as Mr. Roddenberry said, you always had to balance them. You couldn't have an odd number. You can't have 3, you can't have 5. You can have 2, 4, 8, 10. Anyway, I digress. But I think it's nice that, people have grown up a wee bit, and they kind of accept that. Maybe you can't accept that the exterior of the TARDIS can change, because that's another bone of contention. But it always has. But the interior we're allowed to play with, and I think they did it really well. Yeah,
it felt quite. It seemed suiting. I could almost imagine it having like leather seats with with studs in them, like you'd get in a gentleman's club. That sort of red leather kind of look. Yeah. I think it would be bits of there'd be a seat somewhere where the Doctor could sit down like that.
But equally, you could imagine that round the corner was Sylvester McCoy's seat with his gramophone.
Yes. Yep.
With the shattered remains of a teapot or a teacup somewhere, not quite tied up. You could believe that was still there, and just clever.
It's glorious. It really is. Just lovely little nods and things like that here and there. So yeah, I really enjoyed revisiting it and thought it's one that I really hope other people will give a chance to again, because there's so much of the new series DNA in there. As I said, all the things I listed at the top, things this has got in common with Rose. Yeah. And there's so much to love.
I think BBC, if you're listening, it would be really good to have that on iPlayer to give people a chance to see other things. I haven't seen Shada ever, animation since I could no longer play it on whatever player, because it wasn't even Flash. I think it was Real Player or something else.
It was actually included on the Steelbook release of Shada, and you should get the McGann version on there, which I picked up for $9.99 in my local CEX. Wow. I've never seen it since, or I hadn't seen it before. I was like, I'm having that. So I have a permanent animated Paul McGann.
That's good. I think this stuff should go on iPlayer. I think it's not going to do BBC any harm. And it'd be nice for them to show, look, here's the heritage.
There is a rumour that when the collection is complete on Blu-ray, that there will be a Wilderness Years release, which will have a TV movie, Scream of the Shalka, hopefully Shada, Real Time, and Death Comes to Time, possibly. It'd be nice to have all those in some sort of permanent form where you can go in and watch them and have associated making ofs and the like. So that's the rumour. We can but hope it will come to pass.
I mean, I think for this, my own personal Russell rotometer is well and truly shattered. It won't give a high enough reading, so I will be coming back to this. In fact, I shall probably be putting this onto some form of audio so I can play it.
Yeah, I'd give it a 4, very strong 4 out of 5. It's got its flaws. Perhaps at some points it does slow down a little bit further on into the old episode 4, 5, 6 when you're reaching the second half of the story and filling it out, and there's quite a bit more of the military stuff. But generally, it's very entertaining, and I think the further on it goes, the more Richard E gets into it and is finding his feet. And given that he's not had a regeneration story or an opening, basically it's a cold open, and he's had to work his way into it as he goes along. So I think it's a fascinating insight to something that never was.
I'd like to know whether he arrived at the recording wearing some kind of costume.
Well, there are the pictures in Doctor Who magazine where he's got a blue shirt on and he's pointing, and Richard E. Grant is a doctor. But it also had the hilarious story of Ben Cook arriving to cover it for DWM, and they forgot to tell the cast and crew that he was going to be there, and they panicked when they discovered there was a writer in the building, and they thought, they've gone rogue, and obviously it doesn't make a good impression to your actors and such, like if somebody appears without them being warned. And he was basically locked in a cupboard till they worked out what to do. And in the end, Russell T took that report and showed it to BBC Publicity to say, this is not how we're going to be doing things when the show is back. And it's really, really funny. Ben did a really good job in that. It made me laugh.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So but of course, the Shalka Doctor didn't quite end, as we know. There were plans for other adventures. As mentioned earlier, The Feast of the Stone, which is a text story still available on the BBC Cult website, which was, I think, published in early 2004. And that's The Feast of the Stone by Cavan Scott and Mark Wright. And it's just a text story that you can read, and the pair of them give a wee commentary beside it as well. So that's interesting. That might be worthy of podcast adaptation one day.
I wonder who might take that on.
Yeah, I wonder who'd be interested in reading that.
Who knows, eh? Who knows?
Indeed. And there was, of course, plans for another story, Blood of the Robots, which was going to be the second webcast. And that was going to be written by Simon Clarke, who wrote the official sequel to The Day of the Triffids, The Night of the Triffids. And I am delighted to reveal on The Power of Three right now that Simon will be joining us next week to talk about Blood of the Robots, to tell us what would have happened, how far it got, and lots of other bits and bobs about it. And also he'll be talking about some of his other work, because he's got a new film out as well, so that's quite nice. He's taking time out from promoting a film in LA to talk to The Power of Three.
Kenny, you're good. That black book is bulging.
It most certainly is. There you go. And there you go. Just for a benefit of YouTube viewers, it literally is.
It literally is, and it is bulging.
Yep.
It's a bit Diary of River Song battered looking.
It is. It tells you how old I've had this for years and years and years, and it's even got on there. There's my address when I lived at my mum and dad's. Look at my writing,
Wow.
so neat. But the weird thing is, see if you look at my mobile number, it's actually, see if you change that 4 to 77. That's still my number.
Wow.
And I've had this file of facts since, gosh, about 1995, 96.
Now you see, in Archive Creep, that's not affected
True.
because you can read it. It's well preserved. As long as you don't dunk it in your tea or the bath,
Yep.
it'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at my Doctor Who contacts list here. Carol Ann Ford's home number. I've got. Now, here's the scary thing: is they've actually got numbers of people who are no longer with us. Gareth Thomas, Maggie Stables, Michael Sheard. See this one here? There's this fifth from the bottom here. Who's that? Stevie. If I can get it in focus. Is it going to go in focus?
No, sorry, can't read it.
It says David T. Ennant with his mobile number. See, this is from, I got that number back about 2001. Hamish Wilson, the other Jamie, Trevor Martin, Dave Martin, all passed away. And thankfully, there's people still with us. I've got like Katie Manning's there, Louise Jameson, Dan Starkey, Peter Purvis, Jimmy V, the Mox of Balhoun. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting numbers and people still in there. So, yeah. There you go. So that's the Infinite Address Book.
That's what we'll refer to it as, the Infinite Address Book.
Yeah, it's there. So it exists. It is a real physical thing. And now you have seen it. And now you must have your mind wiped to forget all the numbers that you've just seen.
It's retcon time, isn't it?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. But yes, looking forward to speaking to Simon about that. And that'll be in next week's episode.
Smashing.
So yeah, I think interesting as the animated Doctor Who goes. And of course, we would later get the Cosgrove Hall working on the Infinite Quest for David Tennant.
Yep.
And that looked great. Really enjoyed that. And we would get more CGI-based stuff with Dreamland during the specials year in 2009.
I enjoyed Dreamland, I have to say. Really enjoyed Dreamland.
We actually have an episode about that. I think that was around episode 98 where we spoke to the writer, Mr. Phil Ford, and spoke to us all about that. That was good fun. And Gary Russell told us about doing the voices. We really should get one on the Infinite Quest as well. Yeah. That would be fun. Yeah. Haven't watched that in a while.
I haven't watched that at all. I must watch that.
Wow. Well, there we go. There's some live forward planning taking place for you listeners right now. Only in the Power of Three do you get such amazing public sharing of our plans.
Our wonderful plans. Wow.
So I put a bit Anthony Ainley there. I don't quite know why. Anyway, I really enjoyed it. And like you, Stevie, I will definitely be giving this a watch. It will not be sitting for another 12 years on the shelf before I give it another viewing.
No, it really, really was excellent. And I have to thank you for saying, why don't we do it? Because otherwise I wouldn't have lifted it off the shelf and I would have forgotten how good it is. So everyone out there, if you've got access to it, give it a go. Absolutely. Why don't you write in and tell us what you think? You can get us on Twitter at Power of 3 Pod with a number 3. You can find us on Blue Sky at Finished Zine. We have our Facebook group. And if you want to email, send it to the earth2podcast@gmail.com and Peter will be delighted to pass it on. No, he will, genuinely. I see. I've always meant to ask you about that, but maybe that's a conversation for off air. Yeah, I'll tell you now. Peter, of course, is the co-host with our Dave Steele of the Earth 2 podcast. I see. And because we don't have a dedicated email address, they do. And, well, Dave says, just use it and send it to Peter, and Peter will be delighted to pass it on. So, fair enough. I don't think anybody ever has emailed. So, listeners, if you want to email us and tell us if you want to email us, send an email to the earth2podcast@gmail.com, and that's number 2 in Earth 2. And it would also prove that the email address is actually working, because maybe hundreds of people have emailed us and it just hasn't got through. Yeah. Listeners, if you're not sure if your email has got through, send an email to the earth2podcast@gmail.com and Peter will pass it on. Anyway, this is getting a bit silly. We're getting into recursive occlusion. So it's time to move on. And
We don't even need to trail what's coming up, Stevie, because I mentioned it pretty much within the first 5 seconds of today's episode.
I don't think there's any argument about what's coming up.
Absolutely. I'd say Jerry was always my favourite Spice Girl. Geraldine Estelle Halliwell. I love the name Estelle. Something stellar about it. If you're called Estelle, listeners, send us an email to the Earth2 no, the Earth2podcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
And even if you're not... No, never mind that.
Sorry, Peter, when you're getting inundated. At the Earth2podcast@gmail.com with all the power.
I should also say, if you were offended by Kenny's Welsh accent, that's also the email to send to. And if you liked Kenny's accent, we'd appreciate the feedback.
Absolutely. So there we go. Stevie, thank you. Great to see you as always.
Great conversation, Kenny. It's been great to chat about this wonderful production.
Yeah, and you better hang on, kids, because it's time to scream if you want to go faster.
And I'm going to leave Kenny alone with Jerry now. So bye-bye, listeners.
Oh, yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Duckins.
Oh, Kenny, enough. If you've been offended by that remark, again, Earth2 Podcast is your email to go to.
Bye-bye.
Bye.